My parents spent $80,000 on my twin, told me you'll figure it out. So I secretly won a six-figure scholarship and out-succeeded them all by 23. They believed that there was only one true daughter, even though Ava and I are twins. Unfortunately, that wasn't me. I became aware of the difference in their treatment of me from a young age. The newest, prettiest, and most sought-after items were always given to Ava. I acquired the dolls from the kids of the neighbors, and she got the dolls. I got the dresses that had already been worn, and she got the dresses. My mother flew to console Ava, give her a hug, and try to convince her when she started crying. I was handed a paper napkin and sent off to play again when I tripped and scraped my knee, and all I heard was, "You're a strong girl, Lena. Be patient." I realized as a child that I needed to do something remarkable to get attention. Ultimately, nobody saw my tears for no apparent cause. One of the most memorable incidents from that period comes to mind. About 5 years old. I was playing in the yard with Ava. She became frightened and began to scream when she attempted to scale a tall metal structure on the playground. To let her know it was all right, I climbed up and leaped off despite my own fear. Though Ava didn't even attempt to climb up, Dad came up to us first, hugged her, and told her she was a courageous girl. I had thought my parents would commend my bravery. "Be careful, Lena. You know you can hurt yourself," was all he said after giving me a quick glance. No admiration, no pride in myself. Our relationship may have been modeled after this for many years to come. They grew increasingly uninterested the more I attempted to demonstrate my worth. However, my parents would instantly praise Ava whenever she smiled or did something inconsequential. I kept my jealousy to myself. A child finds it hard to comprehend why he receives less affection. At night I sobbed while holding the worn-out teddy bear that my grandmother, Evelyn, had given me. The only person who ever gave me a warm glance was my grandmother, Evelyn. We hardly ever saw each other because she lived in a different city. However, each time she came to visit, I felt the warmth that, regrettably, my parents were unable to provide. Everything became considerably more apparent when we started school. Ava's efforts were consistently commended. For instance, she had an unremarkable, flawed craft made of cardboard and paper. I got my first literary achievements at the same time, but my mother said, "This is just a masterpiece, Ava. How did you do it so beautifully? Oh, you're so clever." I won prizes in drawing contests and was recognized by my teachers for my short writings. However, this just elicited a frigid response at home. I sensed tightness in my mother's voice as she said, "Well, yes. Well done, Lena. But watch out, don't get cocky." It was as though she didn't even want to acknowledge that I could succeed without their help. Since I knew it was pointless, I put a lot of effort into my studies and avoided grumbling and complaining. Ava and I brought in our report cards one day when I was around 10 years old. She received a few solid scores between C's and B's, whereas I received straight A's. When my parents saw my A's, they simply nodded and said, "Well, you're a smart girl, it's clear." They also gasped when they saw Ava's report card saying, "Wow, 3 B's. Great, Ava, we're proud of you." My heart sunk, as I recall. It appeared as though someone else had received the prize for my diligence. And this repeatedly took place. The void in our family became increasingly apparent as we grew older. My parents thought they needed to spend more time with Ava. She was more delicate, more sensitive, and more exposed. They also believed that I am capable of defending myself. In the same vein, "You'll figure it out yourself, you'll find a way out yourself," and so forth. I eventually came to terms with the idea that I wouldn't have much parental support, but this doesn't imply that I should give up. Conversely, it always encouraged me to move forward, even more obstinately, continually demonstrating my value to myself, rather than to them. The issue of selecting a college came up as Ava and I were finally getting close to graduating. Both of us chose to major in accounting. It proved to be a remarkable coincidence. I enjoyed order and accuracy, which sparked my interest in statistics, money, and reporting. I never saw any particular interest in such disciplines in Ava, but my parents took this quite seriously when she remarked, "Well, this is a popular profession, and then we'll see." To ensure that Ava has nothing to worry about while she studies, they paid for her education in full and all at once. Allow her to concentrate on her studies. As soon as the topic of education funding came up, they said, "You're smart, Lena. You can probably get a grant and earn some extra money if necessary. You won't be lost." On the one hand, I was offended that they were spending so much money on my sister, and on the other hand, I had to work hard to get every scholarship and grant. On the other hand, this was what motivated me to keep going. I reasoned that I would demonstrate my strength if they were certain of it. In order to pay for at least some of the costs myself, I started to draft grant applications, submit applications for various scholarships, and search for student openings. Despite living at the same college in rather different ways, we both attended it. Ava occupied a large room on campus. She received money from her parents on a daily basis for everything from amusement to clothes and textbooks. She lived a happy and carefree life, attending parties and hanging out with her peers. After securing a small room in a dorm, I worked part-time in the library during the evenings and occasionally as a cleaner. I became a member of a modest program that charged kids to clean rooms. I occasionally cleaned the dorm's hallway floors, and I completed all of this during the times when the majority of my students were sleeping. And I read a ton of books on accounting, financial analysis, and taxes during the breaks I managed to get for myself. Despite my extreme exhaustion, I understood that this was the only way I could accomplish anything. No one is going to give me what I want easily. It went unnoticed by my sister. She would say, almost pityingly, "You look tired, Lena. Maybe you should manage your time better instead of running around everywhere." Whenever we happened to cross paths in the cafeteria or on the playground in front of the building, I knew that this was my choice, so I would smile back, attempting to hide any anger or bitterness. An inner voice would tell me, "Hang in there, Lena. You have everything ahead of you." A few semesters went by after I made this decision. After settling down, I came to the realization that I needed to plan ahead for my career in addition to my primary academics. I therefore attended a number of internships. I acquired a job at a small auditing firm where I was officially on duty. I assisted with paper sorting, copied documents, and brought coffee. I gained priceless experience of absorption in the actual world in exchange. They gradually started letting me handle little jobs that called for specific abilities. I gladly accepted everything. Since such interns are typically recruited from more prestigious universities, many of our college's students not only didn't try to find employment there, but just assumed it was impossible. However, I asked for a chance by knocking on doors, and I was fortunate. I found out about the chance to prepare quickly and take some of the CPA examinations early toward the end of my first summer of college. I came to the realization that I could pass some of the tests before I graduated if I worked like a horse. And once more, nobody in my immediate vicinity thought that a typical student could accomplish this. But I had faith in myself. I was strong. I met Professor Whitaker at an elective around the same time. International financial reporting requirements were the subject of another course he taught. Despite the fact that the course was challenging and lengthy, I enrolled. "Lena, you have quite a strong base. Where did you study before?" he asked me after the lecture on the first day of lessons. "Well, not really anywhere in particular. I just read a lot, study, try to figure it out." "Do you like accounting?" "Yes, very much. I believe that order in numbers creates order in both business and in minds." He grinned and said, "What a surprising formulation. I'm looking for an assistant who could help me prepare materials, sometimes check students' work. If you're interested, let me know." "Of course, I'm interested. I'll be very happy." I returned to my room, ecstatic at this new chance, and joyfully called my mother. I was still holding out hope that some compliments would pierce their typically icy acceptance. My mom replied, "Well, that's good, Lena. But Ava told me that she was invited to a party at a professor's country house, and there will be a lot of high society people there, so she has her own pride. You're both doing well." I let out a deep sigh. It was like this. My sister was attending a party while I was working as an assistant to an accounting professor. However, Mom and Dad were equally successful. Maybe this is how things will always be for them. I was waiting for the library to close one evening when I got an email. An informational letter on the Everett Sloan Scholarship was the subject line. I didn't instantly know what it was about when I opened it. In the realm of accounting, it proved to be a highly esteemed nationwide program. It is given out to just 5 students nationwide each year. Excellent academic performance, exceptional extracurricular activities, leadership abilities, professor references, and many more things are required. The Benjamin Ford Scholarship. I must admit that I never considered applying for this scholarship since I believed the requirements were too high. However, my portfolio must have been sent by Professor Whitaker himself. In order to prevent nervousness, he made a habit of recommending intelligent kids without prior notice. The email stated that because the committee was impressed with the sample of my accomplishments, I was being encouraged to submit a full application. After reading it multiple times while in disbelief, I finally decided I had to give it a shot. I kept my intention a secret from Ava and my parents. I had already learned my lesson by then. I am responsible for my own goals and accomplishments. In any case, they will either ignore it or think it is unimportant. Why should I witness their apathy once more? I spent a few weeks getting ready for the tournament. I had to finish a number of assignments, write an essay, turn in recommendations, and turn in all the paperwork. Professor Whitaker checked the material, offered guidance, and pointed out errors. I put my all into it. After that, I sent the paperwork, and I forgot about it for a few months. My daily routine consisted of work, studies, internships, and getting ready for the CPA examinations. I didn't give myself a minute to unwind. I discovered a letter in the mail 3 months later, after working another shift at the library. Well done. You are among the 5 Everett Sloan Scholarship winners. I closed my eyes and nearly sobbed as I read these sentences again and felt a flurry of emotions, including pride, joy, excitement, surprise, and, most significantly, a sudden activation of that quiet voice inside of me that said, "You see, Lena, you can do it. You did it." I recognized for the first time that I could no longer be ignored. Being seen is exactly what I've desired my entire life, despite the fact that this sounds a little cocky. On the inside, though, I felt tired in addition to proud. How about my parents? What are they going to do? At this point, will they even want to congratulate me? There was early notice of the award ceremony. Representatives from major accounting firms, investors, journalists, and educators from throughout the nation were expected to attend the event, which was scheduled to take place at one of the top colleges. My folks were asked to accompany me. This will be a special day for them. They will be able to see what you have achieved, the organizer remarked on the phone. Admittedly, I was hesitant. I was hesitant to invite them in part because I feared making another chilly remark or underestimating them. The stubborn inner child, however, still wanted to get at least a little pride from them. Consequently, I called the house number. "Hi, Mom, remember how I told you I was entering this big competition?" Something like that. "Yeah, what's it all about?" "Anyway, I won one of the most prestigious national scholarships in accounting. I'm invited to the award ceremony, and they're asking me to bring my parents." "Really?" Mom called out to Dad, raising her voice. "Mark, come here. Lena's saying something about an award." Once more, she took up the phone. "When's the ceremony?" "In 2 weeks, Friday in the morning. It's in a different city, but I'll check with you to see what's most convenient for you. They want to see you there." Mom said, "Okay, we'll try to make it," in a tone that suggested she wasn't sure if it was worth the time. I felt empty as I hung up. "All right," I told myself. "Let them see it for themselves even if they do come. Then perhaps something will change." But my naive optimism had vanished. By now, I had hardened even more. The award ceremony day finally arrived. I got to the university early and changed into my sole somewhat formal outfit, which was a modest black dress with a classic cut and understated embellishments. The other laureates, the men, were rushing about. All of us felt a little uneasy. We were informed that each name would be called when we were escorted into the hall where the ceremony was to be held. The university's director would bestow the prize after tallying the short-term accomplishments. Each of us found a spot in the front rows. As the hall grew full of visitors, I saw that Ava was seated beside our parents. My sister had a stylish handbag on her lap and was dressed in expensive clothing. Mom and Dad were somewhat perplexed, as though they were unsure of their own purpose in such a hallway. To avoid becoming sidetracked, I made an effort to avoid looking them in the eyes. I was prepared for life's most significant event. The ceremony finally started. One laureate after another was announced by the host. They heard eloquent biographical accounts. A tax accounting optimization program was developed by someone. Someone made a name for himself with international student projects. I tried not to become too excited and gave everyone a round of applause. It was then my time. The next student, ladies and gentlemen, is an example of resilience, discipline, and independence, the chancellor stated as he got to his feet. Meet Lena Carter. Her instructors describe her as a person of iron will and tenacity. She went from being a cleaner and a librarian to being among the best in her class, without financial help from her family. The audience erupted in applause, and I heard other people rise. I felt a surge of heat travel through my body as I got up from my chair. I was on my way to the platform when I suddenly turned to look at my parents' expressions in the crowd. I didn't notice the typical pride in Mom's eyes, and she was seated with a chilly face. Dad appeared taken aback, as though he hadn't anticipated such a serious situation. Ava gave me a confused look that I thought was tinged with jealousy. Then, as if for the first time, I became aware that they were actually observing me. I took the stage. The chancellor gave me an award, shook my hand, and gave me a quick congrats. After we snapped a picture, I went back to my seat among the raucous celebration. After all those years of being disregarded, I felt as though fate had finally paid me back. In addition to Professor Whitaker, numerous academics and representatives from big businesses came up to me after the event. They gave me business cards, congratulated me, and inquired about my interest in an internship with their organizations. I grinned and silently exulted. Here it is, the fruit of labor. I nodded, and then I saw my parents and Ava approaching me. Suddenly, I saw the Chancellor, who also approached me and whispered in my ear, "You have proven that family is not always the one who helps. Sometimes family is yourself. Don't forget that. Now all doors are open for you." I sighed when I saw them and braced myself for yet another chilly exchange. "Congratulations, Lena," Mom replied, attempting to smile. "But why didn't you tell me it was that serious?" "You're great, I guess." "Have you ever listened?" was my straightforward response. I believed my remarks contained more fatigue and relief from years of expectation than violence. Dad began to say something, and Mom scowled. "We always believed that you were capable of so many things, but we didn't know that you needed help. We thought you could handle it yourself." "You never asked if I needed help," I replied. "It suited you to think that Lena can do anything. But sometimes I want someone to support me too." Mom gave Ava a perplexed look. She looked from me to our parents while standing quietly. Ava then attempted to interrupt. "Listen, Lena, I didn't know you were applying for this scholarship. I thought your college was paid for too." "Really?" I asked, meeting her gaze. "Have you ever wondered how I pay for my studies and rent? Has it ever occurred to you that you and I live different lives?" Ava gestured helplessly. "I guess I was too busy with my own life." "Exactly. And you were all fine with it. However, I don't want to sort things out now. I don't need your approval anymore." I faced away from them. The main character generally breaks down in tears during such scenes in books, but I was more composed than ever. I was experiencing a lot of emotions, but they had nothing to do with my family. They were about me. I realized it all at once. At this point, I totally gave up on winning their love and gave up on the hope that they would one day realize how wonderful I was. The recipients were honored with a brief reception at the institution that evening. Teachers, students, investors, and a few parents attended. Mine remained as well. It was only at the refreshment table that I happened to run into them. A representative of a major auditing firm, one of the prospective employers, approached and stated, "Miss Carter, we'd like to discuss a possible job offer. We're impressed with your accomplishments and references. Can you come to our table?" At the other end of the room, I could see my family. Mom, Dad, and Ava stood there looking at me, humiliated, but afraid to come close. I then approached the investors at the table, and we started a lively conversation about the future, including the possibility that I would be given a starting job at the Boston office as a junior auditor. My objective was to go into a big city, a hip office, and start doing actual auditing. My parents made the decision to go to the scholarship recipients' dinner the next day. My mother tried to strike up a conversation throughout supper. "Lena, we know we may not have been the most thoughtful parents, but we really do love you and Ava equally. Maybe we just haven't had our priorities straight. It's not about love, Mom. It's about how I've always felt like I had to earn your praise, while Ava always got it by default. I tried and I tried, but you didn't see it. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm no longer used to asking." With a sigh, Dad held out his hand as though he wanted to give me a shoulder pat. "Forgive us, daughter. We didn't notice that you were suffering so much. I don't want to quarrel now. Just accept that everything is different now. I'm not offended. I'm just making a choice in my own favor." Ava fiddled with her napkin while sitting somewhat off to the side. She looked up at me every now and then, as though she was still in shock that I was the same quiet Lena who was constantly on the receiving end of the stick. She was obviously not happy that I was the focus of attention in the place where she had always felt she belonged, and I could see bewilderment and a trace of envy in her eyes. I eventually accepted the Boston office's offer a week after the ceremony. I was called to Los Angeles and Chicago by another big firm, but I ultimately chose New York. The huge city's speed and the chance to develop more quickly in a demanding setting drew me in. I kept packing my belongings slowly in anticipation of moving after the semester ended. My relationship with my family has deteriorated to nearly nothing since then. We occasionally give each other a call, but these are brief, courteous chats like, "How are things at work?" "Great. I have a project here." That's all. "Okay, well, we are happy," follows. To be honest, I no longer felt the need to prove anything to my parents, despite their attempts to communicate. Ava sent me a few texts, but they weren't meant to offer congratulations or acknowledge my accomplishments. Instead, they were a complaint that our parents started expecting her to be more independent after they saw that I could be self-sufficient. And this kind of made me laugh. As it happens, Ava found it impossible to live up to their prior expectations after my example upended their routine. I will never forget the first time in my life when everyone turned to stare at me when the chancellor called my name in the hallway. Without any special favors, money or favors from others, I was able to accomplish this on my own and felt seen and acknowledged. Even now, when I work for a big firm and occasionally learn about new obstacles, this feeling gives me the courage to keep going. However, I find no challenge more terrifying than the years I spent attempting to get the attention of those who did not view me as a true daughter while living in my sister's shadow. Looking back on my life, I can say with certainty that there are moments when you just choose to love yourself instead of requesting affection. This does not imply that I have grown resentful or heartless. Instead, I feel really confident and at ease with myself. I'm prepared to assist others who might not have family support. I want them to know that if you have the will, the goals, and the faith in yourself, anything is possible. Anything is conceivable. You will figure things out on your own, even if you were taught repeatedly as a child that you were intelligent and that you would not need assistance. Our mistakes and wounds give us strength, and occasionally, the love we didn't receive serves as the catalyst for our success. My parents did not attend the ceremony when I graduated and was given my diploma. They must have had something to do. "You can manage without us, right?" my mother asked. It was with a smile that I said, "Yes, of course I can." My grandmother Evelyn, who had always been nice to me, contacted me a week later. She said, "I'm proud of you, Lena. You are a wonderful granddaughter. I wish I could be there with you, but you know I'm always there in spirit." When she said that, I nearly started crying because I knew I wanted her to be the one to watch me go across the stage to get my diploma and stand there feeling more joy than I had ever experienced. However, she was already elderly, and the trip would have been challenging for her. However, I was incredibly thankful to her for her call, which was the warmest moment of that day. Ava entered the room as I was packing my things for New York a few months after I graduated, I recall. She had made the decision to come visit me and had taken her car to campus. She hadn't been there for a while, so I was taken aback. She entered, sat on my bed's edge, and made an effort to strike up a discussion. "Lena, maybe you don't want to, well, go so far away. Our parents want us to be close." "Ava," I replied quietly, "my parents never cared what I did. Now they suddenly want me to be close? Sorry, but I have my own path." "I'm just afraid that we don't talk anymore," Ava whispered as she picked at the edge of the pillow with her fingernail. "We haven't really talked much anyway, Ava, and you know it." With a heavy sigh, she lowered her gaze and got to her feet. Then I noticed a sort of childlike bewilderment on her face. It was the first time in my life that I sensed my sister's insecurity. Perhaps she came to the realization that her happiness had been predicated only on the fact that our parents had fostered her as their favorite. As it turned out, she was just graduating from college and wasn't really sure what she wanted to do with her life, whereas I had made it to the next level and was receiving fantastic offers. At last, she said, "Good luck to you, Lena," and walked out of the room. I continued to stare at the closed door for a few more seconds, feeling uneasy. It was neither scorn nor rage. Instead, it was a subdued melancholy. We were twins when we were younger, able to laugh together without worrying about who was born 4 minutes earlier or later. However, life transpired in a way that caused us to grow up differently and change significantly as individuals. I was unable to revert to that naive, childlike sense of unity. Despite being in the same family, we are now strangers. I fell into a mad work rhythm in New York. It was challenging at first. During my 10 to 12 hours at work, I prepared reports, learned new things, interacted with clients, learned new programs, and became proficient in the subtleties of auditing. However, I liked it. I like addressing challenging challenges every day and being there in the middle of things. I no longer waited for my parents to congratulate me on another accomplishment because I was confidently establishing a profession. Why am I in need of this? I personally witnessed the results of my efforts. On weekends, I would occasionally stroll across Manhattan, take in the towers, and reflect on how bizarre life can be. Would I have developed the same level of resiliency, stubbornness, and ambition if my parents had given me the same kind of support as Ava? Perhaps not. I am thankful that my route was not an easy one. It strengthened me and taught me that the greatest acknowledgement is the one you offer to yourself. It's been a few years. I've completed my coursework, acquired experience, and received a promotion. Naturally, my parents make an effort to stay in contact from time to time. "How are you doing, daughter? It's a shame you didn't come," is one of their messages, to which I merely respond, "Everything is fine, thank you." Ava occasionally appears on social media with pictures from parties, and she occasionally writes me emails in which she laments her lack of employment. She is furious when I tell her, "Send your resume to different places, take courses, and improve your skills." I find all this so boring. It seems that our paths have finally parted. I don't mind, though, that we don't talk much. It doesn't imply that I loathe or hate them. You just stop pleading for love and begin to choose yourself one day. I eventually came to the realization that I should live for myself rather than for the approval of others. Indeed, blood links constitute family. However, these connections were degrading and smothering me.